Hey, everybody, welcome to It Tastes Different Game Review. What's on the menu tonight is Alan Wake. Alan Wake was originally released in May of 2010. They've just done a remaster released October 5th of this year. And some of us aren't happy with it. So let's go ahead and fire this up. This was developed by Remedy originally and redone with Evic's help on producing it, or publishing it, excuse me. So I'm afraid of who to start with first. So let's go ahead and start with Pat, and let's get his thoughts on this bad boy.
So I never played the original. I will preface it with that. If this is better than the original looks, I felt, kind of bad for the people who played the original. I mean, you could tell they didn't upgrade anything besides polishing it, as far as I can tell. I mean, I didn't play the original, but the gameplay still plays like something from in the 2000s. I'm not a huge fan. I was kind of excited to play this one because I didn't get to play the original. I'm like, here's my chance. I'm a little bit of a graphics snob, so this will give me a better chance of playing something that's older, that's kind of a classic amongst gamers. But the gameplay just really didn't fit what I thought was something I wanted to play, and we'll kind of dive more into that. But my initial thoughts were, it's meh. It wasn't bad. It wasn't great. It was okay. It was good. It was middle of the road. I would probably give it a middle of the road. So for me, it was kind of in that. We'll dive into the gameplay, and then we'll ask Shane some questions about how this compares to the original once everybody gets through their initial, opening remarks on the game. So for me, it was just meh. Wasn't good, wasn't bad. I'm not a huge fan of horror games, so this one had an initial strike against it right out of the gate for me. But Russ, what were your initial thoughts on this one? What'd you think heading out of the gate?
Well, you kind of took the words right out of my mouth. The fact that my first thought with the game was, first off, it looked amazing. I had it on my surround sound, so even that was really awesome. I was actually kind of excited. Got through the tutorial pretty quick, which is the first half, I think, of the first episode. Basically, you kind of get there till you get on the boat. Everything sounded great. Everything did wonderful. I continued on, and I felt like I was in a Telltale game that was remastered. I mean, really, there's some Telltale games out there that seem to be more action driven, more in depth than what this game was. But again, it's an older game. I tried to keep that into perspective, but again, it did unfortunately start to bore me. There wasn't really much to the game that really caught my eye, except it is a good story. I will say that it is a very interesting story. If I had the patience, I would probably play a little bit more to get the story, but I kind of lost patience with it. Looks great. Again, if you feel like you're playing a remastered game, you're playing an updated graphical version of a game that came out in 2000 and I believe 10 is what he just said. That's what it feels like exactly. So I don't know if that's bad, good, or indifferent, but let's go to Shane and find out what he thought.
Well, this game, the original, let me talk about the original for a minute. The original was an Xbox exclusive. You can play the new one now on pretty much everything but Switch. But the original had an appeal to it. It's like one of the few games that I bought all the DLC for. I think the story is fantastic. The gameplay is, even back then, was a little crunchy. It wasn't smooth. It wasn't like stop and shoot like the old Resident Evils, but it kind of felt that way in a way. But it carried along so well because of amazing writing, amazing voice acting in it. Although I still have to say, even today, I think the main character of Alan Wake is still the weakest voice actor in it. I don't know why, but the narrative of the game is just through and through fantastic, in my opinion. It's one of those games that doesn't hold up, after 11 years. Yes and no. If you're new and you're into a psychological horror aspect kind of a game, that's just really easy gameplay overall, this is right up your alley. You're going to really enjoy it. If you want something that's more in depth gameplay wise, definitely not up your alley. It's pretty minimalistic all the way through on the gameplay. And that's not a bad thing, because this is not a game about action and running around and destroying monsters and people and whatnot. This is a game about story, and that's from the beginning to the end. It's all about narrative and driving you forward. That's all this game is truly about.
Right. But they throw in the combat. They throw in the combat, and the combat seems like it was an afterthought in the game.
It almost does. I definitely would not disagree with that, because it even in 2010, the controls for a game like this could have been a lot better. I mean, it really could have been a lot better. But I still overall love this game. The story still holds up for me. The graphics do look fantastic compared to. I mean, they're not next gen by any means, but compared to the 2010 version, yeah, it's apples and oranges. So. I don't know. I think if you haven't played the game, you have got to give it a try. The combat is the weakest link of it. It was originally. It is today. But everything else still holds up. Plus, it does come with the 2 DLCs that came out for it originally. That's all remastered. I highly recommend those. If you enjoy the game, if you can get to the original game, I highly recommend playing the DLC as well. Absolutely loved it. So
with the thought,
away.
Well, with the thought of that combat being a second thing, like it's like that's where they added the difficulty in the game, was in the combat, because you have a flashlight that's basically your reticle, and it's that, I can appreciate combat being difficult, and I don't mind that, or at least that being where they're adding the difficulty. It's just like Patrick said, an afterthought. It was like, well, we need to put in there something that's a little bit more difficult. There's plenty of Telltale games that we've played that we've just had to search, and we've loved those games. They could have just probably left it like that and kept it a story-driven kind of game and been just fine with that. But some of that was very frustrating. I mean, heaven forbid if that right trigger gets a little crazy, you are all over the place. I mean, it's just. But at the same time, keeping in perspective, it is an older game, and but again, that remastered, that remake, it's like we just paid money for an updated version of an old game yet again, and I think that's where my internal struggle is really starting to hit me, is I'm tired of spending this money, although it wasn't my turn this time, but even still, there'll be another one next time. And it's just frustrating. I think, not trying to get off on a tangent or a soapbox, it's just that's where the frustration lies in a game like this. And I think it takes away from me enjoying the game a little bit. I want to enjoy the game, and maybe I could have enjoyed the game if it's not like my own sense saying, my gosh, we just paid for the same game. Like, I don't know. It's like buying the DVD versions of or the Blu-ray versions of Star Wars,
Right.
But anyway,
I bought them on cassette. Then I bought them on DVD, and then I bought them on Blu-ray, and now I own them digitally. Yeah. I mean,
you forgot Laserdisc.
You're right, Laserdisc. I got the big, huge Laserdisc. I will say, I think combat ruined this game for me. And because the game tries to have you do, and that's my biggest complaint, is the combat in the game, because it's forced combat. And you can tell that. It makes some cool suspense in the game, because the flashlight is the only way to tear off the shield of the Taken, and then you shoot him with the gun. But it's also the thing that, in my opinion, that makes a bad game. It's kind of a cool concept. Shine the flashlight to remove their shield, then shoot them a few times. But the game also pushes you into exploration, because there's things to find, such as manuscripts and thermoses and stuff like that you got to find buried in the terrain. But there's areas of the map where some of that stuff's hidden at that the Taken never stop spawning. So you're like running around looking for this, and next thing you know, you got 2 or 3 spawning, and you're like, I'm running out of ammunition and batteries. And you're like, I want to find the thermos that I missed, or I want to find the manuscript piece that I missed. And so the game tries to have you do that exploration, but at the same time has endless combat that is not fluid. And what I mean by that is, like, enemies will spawn in front and behind you. And so you can dodge, but dodging something you can't see behind you is literally almost impossible. So you got to run away from them, kite them, if you will, burn off their shield, then shoot them dead, then go back to try to get what you were trying to get. All the while they respawn when you come back in the same area. So that to me is what killed it. Early on in like this first episode, towards the end of the first episode, you go into this giant open forest area after you kill the boss for that area, if you will. He's not really a boss, but he's like the protagonist is chasing you in that area. And the area where there's a manuscript and a thermos is just nonstop spawning taken. And I'm just like, I got over it. It was over with. I was like, as soon as I knew where the manuscript was, but I died trying to get to it. So I said, screw it, and just ran through the forest and got to the other side and got to the gas station. And I'm like, yeah, I'm done with this. So by the end of the first episode, I was done, and I forced myself to play through a couple more. But overall, that ruined the game for me. The combat did. If the combat would have been a little bit different, maybe I could have kept going. But the way that they just constantly spawn in taken while also pushing you to explore to grab these collectibles, if you will. The manuscripts have some in-game stuff to them, but the thermoses are all just collectible. That's what it is. So that's my biggest gripe about the game. Everything else was kind of cool. The story was kind of cool. The movements were a little bit wonky, but it's a 2010 game. It almost felt like a 2020 game or a 2000 game, maybe in late 90s, the way it played a little bit. But I could overlook all that stuff. The only thing I couldn't overlook was the combat that felt forced and the rarity at which they delved out ammunition and batteries and flares and shotgun ammo and all that kind of stuff. So,
yeah, the exploration is hard, but you can avoid most of it. You just have to, duck, run, grab what you're trying to grab, and then you just haul butt because you'll run into safe zones. Some of them aren't safe, though. Some of them you get there like, yay, there's some light. Nah, shit, the power went out. So
you can't run away from the ones that are ranged because you can duke and juke, but you can only do that so much, and then they're just hitting you from behind, and you think you juked, but you juked a little too early, and then they hit you, and you're just like, all right, because I can't see what's going on behind me while I'm running, unless I'm running backwards, which I'm probably running into another one.
Yeah, but the one thing I will give the gunplay of it, the combat of it, is, it wasn't implemented perfectly, but they were like on the right track before they released it, and I just stopped. Was the different way you, like Pat said, you use a flashlight, it basically knocks off a shield off of them. That allows you to kill them with your weapon, your pistol, shotgun, whatever. But you get flares, you get a flare gun, and various other tools. And there's some technique to using some of these rarity weapons. If you get a flare gun, you don't just one shot that on some random dude, man. You whore that thing up as long as you can until you get big baddie coming to you.
Or you group like 4 or 5 of them into you just run around in circles and get a group of them and you blow them in the middle. It just kills them all. Or you hope it kills them all.
Yep. Yeah.
Knocks a shield off of 4 or 5 of them, or kills like 4 or 5 of them and only knocks a shield off 1 or 2. And you're like, swap weapons real quick.
But again, that's a 2010 mechanic. That's a very basic 2010 mechanic that I get. It's good.
It's still a mechanic today. Yeah. It's just not implemented near as well as it should be today, as it is today.
I agree with Russ, though, too, is that flashlight reticle sucks. You're like, I think I got my gun on him. I shined it, took all of my stuff off him, and then I'm firing and I wing him. And I'm like,
I never had a problem with the gunplay. It's just I don't like being slow when I'm using the gunplay. That's my biggest problem with it. And it, like I said, it's crunchy. It's not smooth. But as far as shooting, never had a problem. The flashlight works fine as a reticle to me. But then again, I played the game before. I really enjoyed the game. And you guys know me, I don't DLC nothing hardly ever. And this one here, I had to have all the DLC, and it was fantastic. I wish Remedy would go ahead and make a sequel and give it the big upgrades that it needs for the next version. So,
right. Let's not forget they took all the product placement out of this game.
That's right. Yep.
I read that. We're
drinking Coke.
You no longer got Energizer batteries. And see, I'd read all that stuff. I didn't actually see it. I just saw they were just playing lithium batteries now, and that, and you had actual name brand vehicles like Ford and Lincoln and stuff that are no longer in the game. So they removed all that rebranding, probably because if they were re-releasing the game, they have to pay it again.
Well, I think they probably got paid to put it in, and then they didn't want to, pay them again.
I'm pretty sure that works the other way around. If you use another company's licensed products in your endeavor, you have to pay them. Like if you put Coke in a movie, a lot of times you either have to work out a sponsorship deal or you have to pay Coke for that, you know?
No, well, Coke can eat assholes.
Right. So, that's the only reason I would see that. Or unless maybe you are right and that Alan Wake couldn't get the rights again to use Coke and Ford and all this stuff in there and Energizer batteries. Now it's all generic.
Yeah, God, I hate when people do product placement. I mean, it just drives me nuts. But overall, I think this game is well worth the $30. I think this game is definitely not in you two guys' repertoire. Nick, who couldn't be here tonight, he was getting something removed from an orifice. He also enjoyed this game.
He was visiting the Uranus proctologist and dental.
Exactly. Dentist. And if you want to know what that is, look at her Instagram. He enjoyed this game, but me and him both played it at the same time back in the day. And I knew you guys, especially you, Pat, would have a little more hard time with it, just because it's just not your repertoire. So, but I think $30 is well worth it.
I think that this game is worth $30 for somebody that enjoys these games, who wants to see a classic game remastered, who enjoys that. For somebody who wants new, who needs new, who is desperate for something new, it is not worth 50 cents.
Well, yeah, I would have preferred this one
to preferred this one to be a Game Pass one. And in all honesty, I maybe got $15 worth of time out of it, enjoyment time out of it, I should say. I paid $30 for it, and I wouldn't pay if I would have played it before. If you played this game before, I don't think it's worth your $30 unless you didn't play the DLC, because now it's worth getting it just for the DLCs alone. But if you already played this game, I would imagine it's a remaster, but it's a remaster, not a remake. So remasters are one of those things that have to kind of gauge whether it's worth your money to play it again on a new gen console for just hot up graphics and stuff. So I don't know. That's everybody's personal decision. Is a remaster worth your money? Nothing's changed in this game, so is it worth your money to do a remaster? The only thing that they changed was removing the branding.
You know what? Yeah. The one thing I did want to say, you're right. If it was on Game Pass, it'd be worth it, Shane. Here's a question. If it was an Xbox exclusive when it first came out, why isn't it on Game Pass? Like, why did they not put it to Game Pass? Whatever the reason is, that's fine. I don't care who, what, when, where, and why. I'm just saying, if it was an exclusive before, why wouldn't they have put it on Game Pass?
That's because Microsoft's not the publisher this time.
More than like, yeah,
Epic
I know,
Games
but
is.
It's just a frustration.
And Epic and Sony have a little thing going on because Sony's putting all their first party stuff on Epic and stuff. So I can see how that's going that way because of that relationship. Epic is like, we'll publish it for you, but we're gonna put it on everything, and we want our money. You're not going to Game Pass this
exactly.
one.
Yeah, exactly. And that's okay. I mean, everybody should have the chance. I mean, PlayStation guys, who only play PlayStation, they may love this thing. They never got to experience the original, so they're going to experience a better version. I love this game. If you played it originally and you love the game like I did, and you really truly love a good story game, this one's right up your alley.
Yep, and don't forget, there's hidden Easter eggs and things in the game. Like, I don't know when I noticed early on in the game that there's a QR code on a message board, on a bulletin board, and I scanned it. It takes you to Alan Wake videos and stuff like that. So there's all kinds of weird little hidden things like that in there, So don't forget that kind of stuff. So that kind of stuff is intriguing. It's just the gameplay for me was just meh. Like I said, by the end of the first episode, I was like, I had to drag and force myself to play through the next one. And I'm just like, I couldn't do it. After that. I'm like, this game's the same over and over and over, and I'm not getting anything new. But I don't know what I expected. What did I expect from this? I knew it was a little bit of a horror game, and it's not that creepy and scary. I mean, you kind of know when things are going to be set up. Like, you walk into an area and you're like, something's going to happen here. I've got to go flip this. Yeah. I've got to flip the switch all the way in the back. Something's going to happen. It's not that. In my opinion, it's a little creepy, but it's not scary. So.
No, I don't think anybody was browning out any shorts on this thing. So,
right. So that's it for me. I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, I would give this game an okay. If you're, if you played it before, you have to make that decision. Is a remaster worth your time and money? If you loved it, And it's like one of your all-time favorites, and I'm sure you're going to get a remaster. If you thought it was just okay, you're probably not going to get the remaster.
Mm-hmm.
But if you never played it before and you like horror, psychological thriller games, it's a decent mechanic game. You should probably give it a try. It's priced at $30. It's got, I think, 6 episodes, and then like a couple of DLCs.
Yep, 6 episodes, 2 DLCs.
Right. So, and the remaster comes with the DLCs. So,
yep, I think pretty much dealt this game the only hand we could give it. I believe I win. I have the better review because I like this game. But let us know what you think. Definitely tell us what you felt if the remaster was really worth it. Let us know your thoughts on all that and all your thoughts on remasters. But until then, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit the notifications, tell your friends. Let us know what you think about everything else in the gaming world, and we will see you next time. See ya.